The sound of applause echoed throughout the grand ballroom as Benjamin Ross, CEO of Nexus Technologies, stepped onto the illuminated stage to accept his award. Waves of nausea rippled through my stomach as I watched from my assigned table in the darkened corner of the room, the champagne in my glass untouched. "I want to thank everyone who made this incredible achievement possible," Benjamin announced, his voice booming through the speakers. His eyes briefly met mine across the room, and I saw the corner of his mouth twitch upward in what could only be described as a smirk. The Regenesis software has transformed not only our company, but the entire industry. From bankruptcy to a $600 million valuation in just 12 months. This is what vision looks like. My vision, my code, my sleepless nights. I gripped the edge of the tablecloth, my knuckles turning white. At 62, I was supposed to be enjoying the crowning achievement of my career before a well-deserved retirement. Instead, I sat silent as another person, a man 20 years my junior with barely enough coding knowledge to update his social media profile, took credit for the work that had consumed the last 3 years of my life. "Diana, you really should try to look happy," whispered Amanda, the HR director seated beside me. "People are starting to notice." I forced my features into something resembling a smile as Benjamin held the crystal trophy aloft, basking in the glow of admiration that should have been directed at me. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulatory speeches and strategic networking, none of which included me, the woman who had actually written every line of the revolutionary algorithm that had saved Nexus from bankruptcy. I waited, biding my time until the crowd had thinned and the alcohol had worked its magic on Benjamin's already inflated ego. I found him in the hotel bar, celebrating with the board members. His cheeks were flushed, his tie loosened, the image of success. "Benjamin, may I speak with you privately?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. He turned, that same smirk playing at his lips. "Diana, my star programmer? Of course, of course." He excused himself from the group, following me to a quiet corner of the lobby. "You know what you did," I said, my voice low but firm. "Regenesis is my creation. Every module, every function. That's 3 years of my life you claimed as your own tonight." Benjamin laughed, the sound like glass breaking. Diana, you were adequately compensated for your time. You cashed your paychecks, didn't you? I was promised recognition, partnership, a seat at the table. My hands were trembling now, but not from fear, from rage. That $500,000 bonus you just accepted? We both know who earned that. Benjamin's expression hardened. He reached into his wallet and pulled out a crumpled $50 bill, pressing it into my palm with enough force to make a statement. "There, that's your true value," he whispered, his breath hot with champagne and disdain. "A replaceable cog in the machine. Know your place, Diana. Women your age should be grateful to even have a position in this industry." The words struck like physical blows. Replaceable, old, woman, each a carefully selected weapon. "You won't get away with this," I said, my voice barely audible. His laughter cut through me again. "I already have. What are you going to do? Sue me? The code belongs to Nexus. You signed away your rights the day you joined the company. And who would believe you anyway? The bitter old woman who couldn't keep up with innovation. Please." He patted my shoulder condescendingly. "Enjoy your remaining time with us. Your retirement party is only, 6 months away? I'm sure we can find someone younger, faster, and considerably less expensive to maintain your little program." As he walked away, I stared at the $50 bill in my hand, his words ringing in my ears. The decades I'd spent fighting to be taken seriously in a male-dominated field, the sacrifices I'd made, the glass ceilings I'd shattered, all reduced to this crumpled note. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, the glow of the screen illuminating my tear-streaked face. The same face that had once graced the cover of Technology Today as one of the top women changing the face of computing. The face that now looked back at me from the reflection in the black screen, tired, angry, and resolved. By dawn, I had formulated my plan. Regenesis wasn't just software. It was an intricate ecosystem of interdependent algorithms, with hidden dependencies and fail-safes that only I fully understood. Benjamin had claimed my code, yes, but he didn't understand it. Not really. I arrived at the office earlier than usual, the building still quiet and mostly empty. I wore my best suit, navy blue with subtle pinstripes, the outfit I'd worn to my interview at Nexus 15 years ago. My silver hair was pulled back in a sleek bun, my makeup minimal but precise. My security badge still granted me access to all the necessary servers and repositories, a courtesy that Benjamin, in his arrogance, had forgotten to revoke. When he strode into the office 3 hours later, I was waiting in his glass-walled office, seated calmly in one of the visitor chairs. "Diana, what are you doing here?" He seemed genuinely puzzled, his hangover evident in the circles under his eyes. I smiled, a serene expression that seemed to unsettle him more than anger would have. "I came to give you something," I said, placing a small USB drive on his immaculate desk. He picked it up, turning it over in his hands. "What's this supposed to be?" "A warning," I replied simply. "You might want to check the Regenesis primary server. It seems there's been an irregularity in the morning's processing cycles." As if on cue, his phone began to ring. He glanced at the screen, his face draining of color as he saw the name of the CTO displayed. "What did you do?" he hissed, fear replacing the condescension from the previous night. I stood up, smoothing the front of my jacket. I simply reminded the system who its real creator is. Just as I reached the door, I turned back to him, watching as he frantically answered his still-ringing phone. "Oh, and Benjamin? You might want to hold on to that $50. You're going to need it more than I will." The sound of panic in his voice as I closed the door behind me was the sweetest music I'd heard in years. He had no idea that this was just the beginning. By noon, the entire company would understand exactly what happens when you underestimate a woman who has nothing left to lose. Benjamin Ross was about to learn that in the world of code, the person who writes the rules holds the real power. And I had written every single one. By 10 a.m., Nexus Technologies was in complete disarray. From my cubicle, I watched as IT personnel rushed past, their faces tight with tension. The Regenesis system hadn't crashed. I would never jeopardize the clients who depended on our services, but it had certainly begun to behave erratically. Amanda from HR approached my desk, her usual composure noticeably shaken. "Diana, Benjamin needs to see you immediately." She lowered her voice. "What's happening?" "The executive floor is in chaos." I saved my work and stood up calmly. "I imagine Benjamin is having some trouble understanding his own award-winning software." Amanda's eyes widened slightly. In 15 years of working together, she had never heard that edge in my voice. "Diana, whatever you're doing—" "I'm simply doing my job, Amanda," I replied, gathering my tablet. "Just like I've done every day for the past 15 years. The executive floor was indeed in chaos. Technicians huddled around monitors. Board members spoke in hushed, urgent tones into their phones. And in the center of it all stood Benjamin, his face flushed with anger rather than champagne this time. "Fix it," he demanded the moment I entered the conference room. "Whatever you did, undo it. Now." I set my tablet down on the polished conference table. "I'm afraid you'll need to be more specific, Benjamin. What seems to be the problem with your software?" His eyes narrowed at my emphasis. "Don't play games with me. The system is redirecting funds, changing allocation percentages, altering key performance metrics. It's making us look incompetent." "Interesting," I said, taking a seat. "And how do you know I had anything to do with it?" "Because only the architect of the system could manipulate it at this level without bringing it down entirely," interjected Marcus Chen, our CTO. Unlike Benjamin, Marcus had always respected my work, even if he hadn't fought hard enough to ensure I received proper credit. I smiled at Marcus. That's a compelling theory. But as Benjamin made quite clear last night, he is the visionary behind Regenesis. Surely he can resolve any issues. The room fell silent. Several board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "What exactly do you want, Diana?" Benjamin finally asked, his voice low and dangerous. "Recognition, compensation, justice." I counted off each point on my fingers. The truth about who really created Regenesis. Benjamin laughed, but it was hollow. You're holding the company hostage for your ego? This is corporate terrorism. No, Benjamin. This is negotiation. I opened my tablet and turned it to face the room. On the screen was a complete timeline of Regenesis's development. My emails, my code commits, my research notes. Evidence that couldn't be denied. I'm not asking for anything that wasn't rightfully mine to begin with. Marcus stepped closer, examining the evidence. She's right, he said quietly. This is all Diana's work. It doesn't matter, Benjamin snapped. She signed an employment contract. The intellectual property belongs to Nexus. True, I conceded. But there's a difference between legal ownership and public perception. How do you think our clients and shareholders will react when they learn the truth? That the company's savior isn't the charismatic CEO, but the replaceable older woman he dismissed? I could see the calculations happening behind Benjamin's eyes. His reputation, his future opportunities, his legacy, all at risk. What do you propose? Asked Eliza Donovan, the chairwoman of the board. Her tone was measured, but her gaze was sharp. Full recognition as the creator of Regenesis, a partnership stake in the company, and compensation commensurate with my contribution, including half of the award bonus Benjamin received last night. Benjamin slammed his fist on the table. This is extortion. This is correction, I replied calmly. You have 24 hours to decide. Until then, Regenesis will continue to express its dissatisfaction. As I stood to leave, Benjamin stepped into my path. You won't get away with this. I'll have security escort you out, revoke your access, report you to the authorities. Go ahead, I challenged. But remember, I built fail-safes into the system. Removing me from the equation won't solve your problem. It will only make it worse. I walked out of the conference room with my head held high, ignoring the whispers that followed me. For the first time in years, I felt powerful, in control. Back at my cubicle, I found a young programmer named Zoe waiting for me. At 28, she reminded me of myself, brilliant, ambitious, and constantly overlooked. Is it true what they're saying? She asked breathlessly. Did you really build Regenesis by yourself? I hesitated before answering. Why do you ask? Because I've studied your code. I mean, the Regenesis code. It's beautiful, elegant, revolutionary. Everyone assumed Benjamin designed the architecture and some team of anonymous coders implemented it, but she paused. The system has one cohesive voice, one brilliant mind behind it. I felt a sudden warmth at her words, the first genuine appreciation for my work I'd heard in too long. The truth will come out soon enough, I told her, one way or another. As the day progressed, the Regenesis irregularities became more pronounced. Client dashboards now displayed my name as system architect. Fund allocations hadn't actually changed, but they appeared to have shifted in reports, causing panicked calls from investors. Most damaging of all, the presentation Benjamin had given at last night's award ceremony now played on a loop on all company monitors, but with subtle alterations that highlighted discrepancies in his technical explanations. By 4 p.m., Benjamin summoned me again. This time, he was alone in his office, the blinds drawn. You've made your point, he said, his voice tight. What will it take for this to stop immediately? I told you my terms. The board will never agree to a partnership stake, and I'm not giving you half my bonus. I moved to leave. Then we have nothing more to discuss. Wait, he called after me. What if we announce you as the lead developer? Give you a promotion, a raise, public recognition? I turned back. Not enough. Benjamin's face contorted with a mix of anger and desperation. You're destroying everything I've built. No, Benjamin. I'm reclaiming what I built. There's a difference. I took a step closer to him. You know what the saddest part is? If you had simply shared the credit, acknowledged my contribution while taking your bow, I would have been content. I never needed to be the face of Regenesis. I just needed to be seen. Something flickered across his face, perhaps the first glimmer of understanding. I need time, he said finally, to talk to the board. You have until 10 a.m. tomorrow. After that, Regenesis moves to phase 2 of its Recalibration. As I walked out of his office, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. I know what Benjamin did to you. I have proof that goes beyond what you've shown today. Meet me at Riverside Park North Entrance, 8 p.m. Come alone. This isn't just about code theft. It's bigger than you know. I stared at the message, my heart racing. Who else knew what had happened? What proof could they possibly have? And what did they mean by bigger than you know? I glanced back at Benjamin's office. He was on the phone, gesturing angrily, no doubt trying to salvage his reputation and position. He caught me looking, and his expression darkened. I had thought I understood exactly what I was up against. One man's ego and ambition. But perhaps there were deeper layers to this betrayal that I hadn't yet uncovered. As I left the building that evening, the weight of the mysterious text message heavy on my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into something far more dangerous than a corporate power struggle. But after a lifetime of being underestimated, I was done playing it safe. The truth, whatever it was, waited for me at Riverside Park, and I was finally ready to face it, no matter the cost. Riverside Park was eerily quiet as dusk settled over the city. The autumn air carried a chill that made me pull my coat tighter around my shoulders. I checked my watch, 7:55 p.m. Whoever sent that mysterious text would be arriving soon. I'd taken precautions, of course. I'd forwarded the text to my personal email and left a sealed envelope with my neighbor containing a USB drive with all my evidence, along with instructions to contact a technology reporter I trusted if I didn't return home tonight. After decades in the industry, I'd learned that naivety could be fatal, especially when challenging someone as powerful as Benjamin Ross. At precisely 8 p.m., a figure emerged from the shadows of a nearby cluster of trees. As they approached, I recognized the slight frame and purposeful stride of Felicity Pierce, Nexus's chief financial officer. My surprise must have shown on my face. "Thank you for coming, Diana," she said, her voice barely above a whisper despite no one else being nearby. "Felicity? You sent the text?" She nodded, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "We don't have much time. What Benjamin did to you, taking credit for your work, it's not an isolated incident. And it's far from the worst of his offenses." She handed me a manila envelope. "These are financial records from the past 18 months. Look closely at the investment patterns before and after Regenesis launched." I opened the envelope and skimmed the documents by the light of a nearby lamp. Even at first glance, the irregularities were glaring. "He diverted investment funds," I murmured, the pieces falling into place. "He knew Regenesis would succeed because he'd seen my prototypes, so he positioned his personal investments accordingly, then channeled company resources to maximize his returns." Felicity nodded grimly. "Classic securities fraud, but nearly impossible to prove without understanding how Regenesis works, which only you do. He's been manipulating the system not just for company growth, but to enrich himself and a select group of board members. Not the entire board? No. Eliza Donovan knows nothing about this. Neither does Marcus. They'd never condone it." I continued examining the documents, my blood running cold as I realized the magnitude of what Benjamin had orchestrated. "This goes beyond taking credit for my work. He's been using my algorithm to commit financial crimes." "Yes, and implicating you in the process," Felicity added. "Your digital signature is all over the code that facilitates these transactions. If this ever comes to light, I'd be the scapegoat," I finished for her. "The disgruntled employee who embedded fraudulent functions into the company's core product." Felicity's face was grave in the dim light. "Exactly. Benjamin has been careful to document every instance where you've acted alone on system changes. He's building a paper trail that leads directly to you." "Why are you telling me this? Why take the risk?" I asked, studying her face. She looked away briefly. "My sister went through something similar at her company. Brilliant engineer, overlooked for promotion repeatedly, then pushed out when she was in her 50s. She never recovered, professionally or personally." Felicity met my eyes again. "I won't be complicit in that happening to another woman." A twig snapped nearby and we both tensed. "I need to go," Felicity whispered urgently. "Use this information carefully, Diana. Benjamin has more allies than you know. Wait, I called softly as she turned to leave. What about your involvement? These transactions required CFO approval. She paused. My electronic signature appears on the documents. Yes. But I have evidence that it was used without my knowledge. I've been building my own case, quietly. With that, she disappeared into the darkness, leaving me with damning evidence and a significantly more complicated situation than I had imagined this morning. Back in my apartment, I spread the documents across my dining table, cross-referencing them with my knowledge of Regenesis's architecture. It was ingenious, really. Benjamin had identified vulnerabilities in my system that even I hadn't anticipated, using them to create undetectable channels for fund manipulation. I worked through the night, tracing transactions, identifying patterns, and slowly building a comprehensive understanding of how my creation had been weaponized. By dawn, I knew exactly what needed to be done. My phone rang at 6:30 a.m. Eliza Donovan, the board chairwoman. Diana, we need to talk, she said without preamble. Not at the office. The Highline Cafe in 1 hour. I'll be there. The Highline Cafe was nearly empty when I arrived. Eliza sat in a secluded corner booth, an untouched cup of coffee in front of her. She looked like she'd had as little sleep as I had. The board met last night, she began as I sat down. Benjamin convinced most of them that you're engaging in corporate sabotage. And what do you think? I asked carefully. Eliza studied me for a long moment. I think a woman doesn't spend 15 years building a company's infrastructure only to sabotage it over recognition. I think there's more to this story. She paused. I also think Benjamin has been too eager to handle all financial reporting himself these past few months. I took a calculated risk. If I told you Benjamin was using Regenesis to commit securities fraud, would you believe me? If she was surprised, she didn't show it. I would need evidence. And if the evidence implicated other board members? Now a flicker of emotion crossed her face. Then I would need to know exactly who and how. I slid Felicity's envelope across the table. It's all there, including who on the board is involved. Eliza didn't open it. Why bring this to me? Why not go directly to the authorities? Because Nexus is more than Benjamin Ross, I replied honestly. There are 400 employees whose livelihoods depend on the company surviving this. I didn't spend 3 years creating Regenesis just to be the one who destroys it. She nodded slowly, then finally took the envelope. What do you want, Diana? What I've always wanted. Recognition for my work. A place at the table where decisions are made. And protection from being scapegoated for Benjamin's crimes. You understand that this will require delicate handling. If news of fraud gets out, the company may not survive regardless of our intentions. I do. I leaned forward. But there's a solution embedded in the problem. Regenesis itself can be recalibrated to identify and correct the fraudulent transactions, creating a record that clearly distinguishes between legitimate operations and Benjamin's manipulations. Eliza raised an eyebrow. You can do that without alerting Benjamin or the involved board members? Give me access in 48 hours. I can make it look like a system-wide security upgrade. She considered this for a long moment. And the irregularities currently affecting our systems will cease immediately, of course. Eliza extended her hand across the table. We have a deal, Diana, but proceed carefully. If Benjamin suspects what we're doing, he won't, I assured her, taking her hand. Men like Benjamin never imagine they can be outsmarted, especially not by women they've dismissed. As we shook on our agreement, my phone buzzed with a text. My heart sank as I read the message from Zoe, the young programmer. Diana, something's wrong. Benjamin called an emergency tech meeting. They're trying to bypass your authentication protocols. He's brought in external hackers. They're talking about neutralizing the threat, and your name keeps coming up. I think you're in danger. I showed the message to Eliza, whose expression hardened. Go home. Lock your doors. Don't access any Nexus systems from your personal devices, she ordered. I'll handle this. How? I asked, suddenly realizing how vulnerable I was. Benjamin had company resources, a security team, and apparently now hackers at his disposal. Because while Benjamin was busy collecting allies on the board, Eliza said, gathering her belongings. I was building relationships with federal regulators who owe me favors. Trust me. As we parted ways outside the cafe, a black SUV with tinted windows pulled up across the street. The driver's window lowered just enough for me to glimpse a familiar face. Marcus Chen, our CTO. "Diana," he called. "Get in, now." Eliza and I exchanged glances. "Can you trust him?" she asked quietly. "I'm not sure I can trust anyone right now," I replied truthfully. Marcus called out again, more urgently this time. "Diana, they're coming for you. Benjamin knows you met with Felicity last night. We don't have much time." In that moment, I had to make a choice. Stay with Eliza and her promises of regulatory intervention, or go with Marcus, whose allegiances remained unclear. The sound of screeching tires around the corner made the decision for me. A second black vehicle was approaching fast. "Go," Eliza urged, pushing me toward Marcus's SUV. "I'll contact you through secure channels. Remember, 48 hours. I rushed to Marcus's vehicle and jumped in, my heart pounding. As we pulled away from the curb, I caught a glimpse of Benjamin himself in the other vehicle, his face contorted with rage. "Where are we going?" I asked Marcus as he navigated through traffic with practiced precision. "Somewhere Benjamin can't find you," he replied grimly. "Somewhere you can finish what you started." As the city blurred past the windows, I clutched my tablet to my chest, wondering if I'd just placed my trust in yet another person who would ultimately betray me, or if I'd finally found the ally I so desperately needed to expose the truth and reclaim what was rightfully mine. The game had changed. This was no longer just about recognition or even justice. It was about survival, mine, and possibly Nexus's itself, and the clock was ticking. Marcus drove for nearly an hour, taking a circuitous route through the city before finally pulling into an underground parking garage beneath an unassuming apartment building in a quiet neighborhood. "My sister's place," he explained as we rode the elevator to the 12th floor. "She's traveling abroad. No one at Nexus knows about it." The apartment was small but modern, with a stunning view of the city skyline. Marcus immediately pulled the blinds shut and set up a laptop on the dining table. "This is a secure system," he said, typing rapidly. "Unconnected to Nexus networks. You can work from here." I studied his face, still uncertain of his motives. "Why are you helping me, Marcus? You never stood up for me before." He paused, guilt flashing across his features. "Because I've been a coward. I knew Regenesis was your creation. I watched Benjamin take credit, and I said nothing." He met my gaze directly. "My silence made me complicit. I won't make that mistake again." His phone buzzed. He checked it and frowned. "Benjamin's called an emergency board meeting. He's telling everyone you've gone rogue, threatening company security. And my apartment? Under surveillance. He's convinced you have a hidden server with evidence against him." Marcus handed me a secure phone. "Eliza just texted. The regulatory contacts she mentioned. They're from the SEC. She's briefing them now." My mind raced, calculating our next move. "I need access to the Regenesis core system. Too risky. Benjamin's watching all access points. Then we create a new one." I opened the laptop and began coding. "Regenesis has a maintenance backdoor I built for system emergencies. Benjamin doesn't know about it because it's not in the documentation." For the next several hours, I worked furiously, building a secure tunnel into the system while Marcus coordinated with Eliza. By nightfall, we had established access to Regenesis without triggering any security alerts. "I'm in," I announced, feeling a surge of satisfaction as the familiar interface loaded on screen. Now we trace the money. The fraudulent transactions were cleverly disguised, but with my intimate knowledge of the system, I could see the pattern. Benjamin had created a subtle algorithm that skimmed fractional percentages from thousands of legitimate transactions, routing them through a maze of dummy accounts before consolidating them into offshore investments. "It's brilliant in its simplicity," I murmured, almost impressed despite myself. "He's been stealing millions in plain sight." As I worked to document and reverse engineer the fraud, Marcus received another call. His expression darkened as he listened. "Benjamin's escalating," he reported after hanging up. "He's convinced the board that you planted evidence against him. They've frozen Eliza out of emergency decisions. They're voting on whether to pursue criminal charges against you. I felt a chill run through me. How much time do we have? The vote's scheduled for tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. 24 hours to save my reputation, my career, and possibly my freedom. We need to finish this tonight, I said firmly. I'm going to recalibrate Regenesis to expose the fraud and identify all responsible parties. When it's done, the system itself will provide irrefutable evidence. Working through the night, I meticulously reconstructed the fraud pathway, documenting each step. By dawn, I had created a comprehensive report that highlighted Benjamin's manipulation and exonerated me from any involvement. It's ready, I told Marcus, who had stayed awake supporting my efforts. Now we need to make sure the right people see it. Eliza's SEC contacts? Yes, but also every board member simultaneously. We need to prevent Benjamin from controlling the narrative. Marcus hesitated. That's risky, Diana. Some board members are implicated in your report. Exactly. They'll turn on Benjamin to save themselves. I began typing again. I'm scheduling the system to deliver the evidence to everyone at precisely 8:59 a.m., 1 minute before the vote. Just as I finished, Marcus's phone rang. His face paled as he answered. They're here, he whispered, ending the call abruptly. Benjamin's security team traced my phone. We need to leave. Now. We grabbed the laptop and rushed to the emergency stairwell, hearing the elevator ascending toward our floor. 12 flights of stairs later, we emerged into the parking garage, breathless and disoriented. My car's being watched, Marcus said. We need another way out. A service exit led us to a back alley. Morning light was just beginning to illuminate the city streets as we hurried away from the building, trying to blend with early commuters. It's 7:30, I noted, checking the secure phone. The evidence will deploy automatically in 90 minutes. We just need to stay hidden until then. We found refuge in a busy train station cafe, positioning ourselves in a corner with a clear view of all entrances. Marcus kept watch while I monitored the secure connection to Regenesis. Everything was proceeding as planned. At 8:45, Eliza texted, Benjamin making his case to board now. SEC agents standing by. Where are you? I replied, safe. Evidence deploying in 14 minutes. Be ready. The final minutes ticked by with excruciating slowness. At precisely 8:59, I watched remotely as Regenesis executed my command, sending the damning evidence to every board member, key executives, and Eliza's SEC contacts simultaneously. My phone buzzed with a new message from Eliza. It's working. Benjamin's face when everyone received your report. Priceless. SEC moving in. You've done it, Diana. Relief washed over me, followed quickly by exhaustion. After 3 years of work, months of betrayal, and a night of desperate coding, justice was finally unfolding. But as I looked up from my phone, that moment of triumph evaporated instantly. Standing at the cafe entrance, scanning the crowded space with cold determination, was Benjamin himself. Our eyes met across the room. His expression shifted from surprise to rage in an instant, and in that moment, I knew the final confrontation was inevitable. Benjamin charged toward our table, shoving commuters aside. Marcus stood to intercept him, but Benjamin was faster, fueled by desperation and rage. You think you've won? He snarled, looming over me. You've destroyed everything. I met his gaze steadily. No, Benjamin. You did that yourself when you stole my work and used it to commit fraud. His hand shot forward, grabbing my arm. I made you. Without me, you'd be nothing but a forgotten relic in an industry that values youth and innovation. Let her go. Marcus's voice was firm as he gripped Benjamin's shoulder. Benjamin whirled around, his face contorted. You too, Marcus. After everything I've done for your career? The commotion was drawing attention. Station security was approaching. It's over, Benjamin, I said quietly. The board has the evidence. The SEC has the evidence. You can't bury this. He laughed bitterly. Evidence? It's your word against mine. A disgruntled employee trying to damage the company before retirement. Just then, his phone rang. He checked it, his face draining of color. Mr. Ross? This is Agent Kathleen Morales, SEC. We're currently at Nexus Technologies headquarters. I'm calling to inform you that we've issued a cease and desist order and frozen all corporate accounts pending our investigation. Please return to the office immediately. Benjamin's hand fell limply to his side, still clutching his phone. The fight seemed to drain out of him in an instant. This isn't just about taking credit for my work anymore, I said softly. You used my creation to commit financial crimes, then tried to set me up to take the fall. Security officers reached us. Is there a problem here? Before Benjamin could speak, his phone buzzed again. He glanced down, then looked up at me with genuine fear in his eyes. The board just voted, he whispered. Unanimous termination. The officers escorted Benjamin away, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I watched him go, feeling strangely hollow. This man had tried to destroy my career, steal my legacy, and potentially even have me imprisoned. Yet in this moment of his downfall, I felt no satisfaction, only relief that the truth had finally emerged. Diana? Marcus touched my shoulder gently. Eliza's texting. The board wants to meet with you. They're waiting. The Nexus headquarters was transformed when we arrived. SEC agents moved efficiently through the offices, collecting documents and securing digital evidence. Employees gathered in clusters, whispering anxiously about the morning's events. Zoe rushed up to me as I crossed the lobby. You did it, she said, her eyes shining. Everyone knows the truth now. They know what you created. I squeezed her hand gratefully before continuing to the boardroom. Inside, the remaining board members sat in tense silence. Eliza stood as I entered. Diana, she began formally. On behalf of the board, I want to extend our sincere apologies for what has happened. Benjamin Ross's actions, both in claiming credit for your work and in the financial improprieties, are inexcusable. I nodded, accepting her words but waiting to hear what would come next. We've unanimously voted to offer you the position of Chief Technology Officer, with full recognition as the creator of Regenesis. Additionally, we're prepared to grant you the partnership stake you requested, along with appropriate compensation for your contributions. It was everything I'd asked for, everything I deserved. Yet something felt incomplete. Thank you, Eliza. I accept the recognition and compensation, but I'd like to propose an alternative to the CTO position. Surprise flickered across the board members' faces. I've been thinking about what Regenesis really represents, I continued. It's not just software. It's a new approach to financial systems management, one that prioritizes transparency and accountability. I laid my tablet on the table, displaying a new organizational structure. I'm proposing the creation of a new division, Regenesis Technologies. It would operate as a semi-autonomous unit within Nexus, focused on ethical fintech innovation. I would serve as its founder and director, with the authority to build my own team. Eliza studied the proposal thoughtfully. And your first hire? I smiled. Zoe Parker. She recognized the quality of my code when no one else was looking. She's exactly the kind of talent we need to cultivate, not overlook. 3 months later, I stood before a packed auditorium, preparing to unveil Regenesis 2.0. My team, now 20 strong, predominantly women who had previously been overlooked in their departments, sat in the front row, proud of what we'd accomplished. The system no longer just managed financial transactions. It also ensured their ethical compliance, creating a new standard for transparency in the industry. A year ago, I began, I was fighting for recognition of my work. Today, we're redefining what that work means for the future of financial technology. As I demonstrated the new system, I spotted Felicity Pierce in the audience, smiling approvingly. After Benjamin's removal, she had emerged as a powerful ally in restructuring Nexus's financial governance. After the presentation, Eliza approached me with an industry magazine. On the cover was my photo, with the headline, Diana Vega, the woman who revolutionized fintech at 62. Quite a change from last year, she observed. I nodded, thinking of that crumpled $50 bill Benjamin had pressed into my palm. I'd kept it, framed it, and hung it in my new office as a reminder of how far I'd come. Next month is your 63rd birthday, Eliza noted. Wasn't that your original retirement target? It was, I acknowledged with a smile. But it seems I still have a few good years of innovation left in me. That evening, as I walked through the Regenesis division offices, I paused to watch Zoe mentoring a new intern, a woman in her 50s who had returned to tech after raising her family. Age isn't a liability, I overheard Zoe saying. It's perspective, experience, wisdom. I smiled, continuing to my office. On my desk sat a small crystal award presented by the Women in Technology Foundation. Its inscription read simply, "For breaking barriers and building bridges." Benjamin's final words to me had been wrong. I wasn't a relic. I was a pioneer. And my greatest innovation wasn't Regenesis. It was proving that in the world of technology, value isn't determined by age or gender, but by vision, perseverance, and the courage to stand up for what you've created. The $50 bill in its frame caught the last rays of sunset through my office window. Benjamin had meant it as an insult, a symbol of my insignificance. Instead, it had become the first page of my renaissance,